Hello everyone, Reki coming at you with an opinion piece today, and hopefully I'll be doing it in one take. About a week ago, a little more now, we finally got the first real information on the almost certainly final DLC for Final Fantasy XV. Since then, there's been a lot of discussion around various 15 themed forums like the subreddit and GameFAQs. It seems to me like, though there's a fair amount of hype, it is more 15 at the end of the day, the reaction is fairly tepid. Being that I'm also a bit reserved in my anticipation for aspects of this 4 DLC series, I wanted to talk a little more about it. To start, let me run down what the DLC will actually be so we're all on the same page. This is your spoiler warning, by the way, as I'll have to discuss things like the villain's motivations and the end of the game. Coming first is episode Ardyn, pretty much as we all expected and all wanted. It's subtitled Episode 1, The Concept of the Sage. The struggles of Ardyn and the resentment he harbored over 2,000 years. In theory, I'm 100% excited for this one. The main narrative problem I have with 15 DLC and story updates is that I already know the things they're adding. Certain things like Gladio fighting Gilgamesh, Ignis putting on the ring, etc. notwithstanding. But while those cool details are cool, the big plot points are things I already know. And this is also the case with Ardyn's backstory. Especially now that the Royal Edition update is out and we have some more lore regarding the Kings of Yore, I can tell you with decent confidence the approximate timeline of what happened to Ardyn 2,000 years ago. Hell, I was planning on doing a lore discussion video on it as the first in a series of 15 lore videos a la Epic Name Bros Dark Souls lore videos from so long ago. The reason why I'm excited for this DLC anyways is because I still find the details fascinating, and in theory it's mostly characters we haven't spent any real screen time with. I'm of course assuming that this takes place primarily in the past and not that we're getting a bunch of flashbacks or stories about Ardyn that take place in Nox's time. I really hope it's set in the past. Now, remember I said this DLC was titled Episode 1. And that's because it's supposed to set the stage for 2 other DLCs that are going to be telling a story involving the realization of a future everyone longed for, end quote. So while Episode Ardyn will probably expound a ton on the backstory and the legacy of the Lucius Caelum line and the Astral War, the story itself might be entirely, mostly, partly non-canon. And this is the central problem I have with this series of DLC, but I'll expand on that later. Coming second is Episode Aranea, which fans and myself have been crossing our fingers for. Aranea is one of my favorite characters, kind of in general, personality-wise. I like her for the same reasons I like Yuri in Tales of Vesperia. She's no nonsense, but not without a sense of dry humor, and she's quite capable and authoritative. Plus that voice actress! Anyway, this one is subtitled Episode Side Story, The Beginning of the End, and it's supposed to be about the Star Scourge from Niflheim's perspective, and the quote, final day of the Empire. It seems like this will be the long-awaited Niflheim exploration people have been asking for, and considering that BD2 has said that they wanted these DLCs to take a more Royal Edition style approach, I'm hoping that means the continent opens up a little for the main game as well. Don't know how that would work story-wise, but hey, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. This episode seems like it'll be in the vein of the episodes we already have, though. I don't mind that, to be honest. Curious what that means for the main game reward we usually get, since Aranea is not really a party member. I guess we could get a spear, but still. I'm excited for this one, and since it's called a side story, I'm thinking it's exempt from the alternate reality bit. Third is another one that people have been asking for. Episode 2, Lunafreya, titled The Choice of Freedom. This story is about Luna's fate, which not even death can free her from, and her battle to save the one she loves, which overturns the destiny dealt to Lucian King. So obviously the premise of this DLC is within the canon story, what with Luna being dead and all, but I expect this DLC to be the first in a 2-parter alternate scenario. On one hand, Luna pretty direly needs some screen time, just so we can get to know her more than anything, and we'll probably get to see more of the Empire/Niflheim, but on the other, it's an alternate story. Lastly is one I don't think anyone actually saw coming, but we're calling for ironically. ironically enough. Episode 3, Noctis, The Final Strike. The synopsis is that after, quote, parting ways with the Astrals, Noctis embarks on his final battle in order to obtain the ideal future for all of his people. To be honest, I don't really know where this would take place, so it must branch off of Luna's DLC? The only other place is that it takes place during Nox's crystal slumber, but you can't really embark on a final battle while sleeping, and it would be weird to have two alternate story DLCs that don't connect. I'm also curious what exactly Noctis is battling if he's parting ways with the Astrals. Is he fighting them? Arden still? Something else? So, now that we know what the DLC is and some impressions of mine, I want to address the elephant in the room, the alternate reality. But the reason why I love 15 as much as I do is the characters, straight up. I do enjoy the story through all its quirks, and there's some truly great moments all throughout, but if the cast isn't the 4 Chocobros we have, I wouldn't care as much. So if the alternate reality story gives me more time with the bros, such that I can learn new things about them and get some more interactions, I'll be happy. And I suspect I will get that. These DLCs are being headed by the person behind Episode Ignis. I didn't personally care as much for the writing in Episode Ignis as I did in the main game. It went a little harder with the anime-isms than I would have liked, but it was well made and the cinematography was great, so I suspect the, quote, Dawn of the Future DLCs will be fantastic. But what really grinds my gears is the way in which the alternate reality came about and why it exists at all. The 15 project's biggest strength and greatest weakness is the devs' slavish desire to consider the player base. They sent out that survey however long ago that seemed determined to fill every part of it. We got a ton of free updates based on feedback, we got community involvement, etc. But what if instead of reiterating stuff we already knew in story updates and DLC chapters, they made new content, like a questline with Core or something? What if instead of updating a prototype and making a second demo, they put that time into something that would be in the final game? I know the Platinum demo took like 3 guys a couple months to make, the point stands. What if instead of making an alternate reality story because some players didn't like the ending, they just didn't and made something else cool instead? They could tell stories about Core pre-15 or do an episode Nyx to tell the story of him freedom fighting in Galad, especially since that place comes up a lot and we never see it. Or what if there was a prologue in Insomnia? I'm not a big fan of that idea personally, but it would still be cool. Basically, what annoys me is that the alternate reality idea seems less like something the dev team had planned and more like they're trying to appease people at the expense of narrative authority. Like, as a writer, have the balls to say, no guys, this is the way we wanted it, if you don't like it, then sorry, but we think it's better this way. Listening to feedback is important, but knowing what feedback is something that should be utilized is another. And if there were the intention to do alternate reality stuff from the outset, like if every DLC that was released had a verse 2 that furthered an alternate reality narrative, then I'd be fine with that. That would be the developers doing their thing. But they didn't. How the alternate reality came to be was them asking if it was something people wanted and caving to a vocal minority that the game should have ended differently. To me, the ending was perfect. It could not have ended any other way. They can't even have the self-confidence to say, fuck it, we're doing this either. This lack of confidence, narrative authenticity, or whatever you want to call it, actively makes me think less of the 15 project and the development team. I still love the game, I love Kingsglaive, Brotherhood, and all that extra content. I'll probably love the Dawn of the Future series too. But come on, Business Division 2. Walk tall, for fuck's sake. Now, with that out of my system, I do have one last thing to say, and that's a theory. In my mind, there is a way to have both the main story and the alternate reality story both happen and both technically be canon. Assuming that episode Luna follows the main story in the living world, at least to a point, I'm wondering if Luna's journey takes her into the Crystal Realm, where she watches over Noctis as he sleeps for 10 years. Then, episode Noctis would take place inside his dreams. Luna gives her love the best gift she could, a happy future. Noctis lives this new future where he separates from the gods and leads the world to the light with him alive and well. He grows and becomes a true king. But then he realizes this new future Luna gave him isn't the world he grew up in, and that there are people relying on him. So ultimately, he decides to return to reality and face his destiny, having gotten to experience a full life and being ready to face his end. As a concession to people who prefer a happy ending, there could be a choice at the end of episode Noctis whether to stay or leave the alternate reality. Choosing to leave brings you back to the main game, and choosing to stay gives you a wrap-up ending and credits. Just a theory. Well, that's all I've got to say regarding the Dawn of the Future DLC coming to Final Fantasy XV through mid-2019. I mean, there's this concept art, but I don't know what to make of it, honestly. Ardyn and the Choco Bros are hanging out as adults with what appear to be Noctis and Luna's children? Unless that's Regis instead of Noctis. In the alternate reality, Ardyn somehow isn't evil or is redeemed, I guess? Not a clue. The crystal kind of rejected him based on the fact that he wasn't what's the word I'm looking for? Irredeemable son of a bitch, corrupted to the very soul. Not a clue. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know if you're interested in that Ardyn lore video, and I'd love if you suggested other topics of 15 lore to tackle as well. It would be nice if the 15 community could gather up all the information and form some sort of Bible. Might as well try and be the impetus. There is the livestream.net that has literally the entire script to 15 as complete as they could possibly get it, but that's just the script. That's not like a lore discussion. For reference, I was thinking of tackling each lore video as a set. One on the events of 2,000 years ago, one on supporting characters of Lucis, one on other supporting characters, one on the mechanics of the magic and the lore, and the cosmogony, etc. Depends on what and how much info I can find. I'm also not guaranteeing I'll be right on everything, but I'll try to clearly delineate between speculation and fact. Thanks for watching. Reki out. Nailed it. One take.